Hello and welcome to another episode in the Introduction to Kritika Zero series. In this video we'll be covering your equipment, as well as the evolution of equipment and the collection log. So the first thing you want to do in your considering equipment is the stats that are on it. So you see every piece of gear has a certain stat roll that's on it. Every piece of pants is going to come with vitality, defense, and critical resistance. And the higher the tier, meaning gray, the lowest tier, following then by green, into blue, into purple, then into legendary, and then finally mythic, they each give more stats of that tier. So for example, these higher leveled and higher tiered pants are going to give more than a just +6 gray pair. So you'll notice that it has some other stats on it, but those are put on by things like soul gems and the enhancement functions, as you can see. So when you're considering what gear to get, in prioritizing, know that accessories, armor, weapons, they all have the same type of roles. So for example, if you want to be more offensively oriented, you're going to want to get accessories and a weapon first, because those will increase your offensive stats, especially the earring, which has defense penetration on it, and the weapon, which has a lot of attack power on it. If you want to change these roles, these identified effects, you can use a recalculation scroll, and what that's going to do for you is it's going to open this menu, and you can go ahead and try to change some of the numbers. I don't want to change any of these, but I'll take a random piece of gear that I'll identify. So I'll identify this. You can see it has a certain amount of stats on it. We'll go over here and we're going to go ahead and buy a recalculation scroll. This is where you get these for free. Well, not free, but if you're free to play, you don't want to buy them from the cash shop. You can either get them from here. These are daily and account bound, so try to only buy the minimum amount that you need. So we're going to go ahead and look at what this reroll looks like. So if you look here, it's telling you in general what the stats are. This is the low range, the max is the highest range. So if you want to use a recalculation scroll, you just click recalculate, and it's going to reroll everything. So you have to take that into consideration. So that actually ended up worse than how it was before, and that can happen. Then you have to keep re-rolling it until you get the values that you're comfortable with. Maybe you want to sacrifice some for another. You can keep re-rolling to get optimal stats, but that's up to you how much time and resources you have and you want to put towards it. But that is how you re-roll those stats. Some of these crystals, for example, they have re-identifies, which actually re-roll the particular stats on them, but for the most part, if a piece of gear has certain stats, those are the ones that it's going to have. So on gear, you can also see that it has aura, and that can also be acquired through soul gems. So for example, you see that this hat right here, this mythic hat, is going to have more than this regular hat. So this has 68 versus, let me use my boots as an example actually. So this has 75 because it's +7. And this is going to be 38. So this has soul gems in it. Each of those soul gems are going to give me 13 aura. They slot into the gear. And if you need to know more about soul gems, there's a video about that. I'll link the playlist for the Introduction to Kritika Zero. You can look up those, see what's great about them. But you're going to know that as you enhance gear, it gets more aura. So this +5, understandably, the +6 would have more aura. Also to note is as you go up the tiers, so for example, a 50 blue would have less than this 55 white, but maybe a 55 blue would have more aura per level than a 55 blue. So the higher the level of the item, as well as the higher the tier, is the more amount of aura that you're going to get per enhancement level. So if you need to know about aura, what that does, there's a video about that. You can look up the stats. So if you're not familiar with that, you can refamiliarize yourself. So how do you enhance gear? So enhancing it's going to increase the base properties. You can see in the parentheses, for example, of vitality, it's going to see that it has a certain amount on it, which is to the left, and then the enhancement level is going to be what, as well as the identified effects, are going to be what are in total enhancing of the piece itself. So if you have an item that gives defense, you enhance it, it's going to give more defense. It's going to give more of what the item already gives. Similarly, these earrings, they are going to give more of the defense penetration, the critical, the crit damage, so on and so forth. In order to enhance these items, you need items called enhancement stones. You can get these a variety of ways, of which I will show one. I actually need to buy a ticket so that I can enter this dungeon. If you do need to buy tickets or figure out dailies, there is a video going over what daily buys you can get and how to get these tickets right here. So I'm going to go ahead and show you this enhancement stone stage really quick. And this will show you where that you need to get these enhanced stones. Enhanced stones themselves are typically bound, but we will show you where we can get them in the shop afterwards, after we do this dungeon. I took off all my gear for the purposes of showing you something in a further point that I'm going to make, so this might take longer than normal. I might not be used to the damage thresholds that I have. I took off all my runes and my gear because we're going to show you that there are two different options that you can choose for gear. Normally this kills the whole room, but that's okay. We're just going to take slightly longer. One tip is that if you are a little bit weaker, there are these bombs. I'm going to show them case them right here. You hit them, and what happens is it blows up, and now you have the ability to back attack them while they are recovering. There are a couple different bombs located throughout here. You will see that. I'll point them out in just a moment. I'm actually going to try to get them to try to land on this, and that's ideally what you want them to do. They might not travel this far, but you would hope that they would land on the bomb or near it so that you can stun them again. There's a total of, I believe, 3 bombs, maybe 4. So after you kill this guy, if you do it on anything but the level 60, you're going to get 1 stone, 1 to 2 stones. But if you complete it on the level 60 difficulty, you're going to get 2 random stones. They can be weapon, accessory, or armor. And you'll see that they go right here. They're untradeable. One thing to note, though, is that the pieces of armor themselves stay tradable. So if you have an alternate character who runs this dungeon, then what you can do is choose to run the dungeon to get the stones for it, move the pieces of gear over to another character, and then enhance on that character. So, we've shown you where the daily dungeon you can get, so that's 6 stones a day. Then, as well as from Lilith. Lilith has enhancement stones you can buy. You can get some, and those are worth getting, by the way, if you have the money. These are from Arendelle. They are 20 apiece. Not worth it, in my opinion. I think that it's better used on the gold. And additionally, you can get them from the cash shop. You can either purchase them through currency, or you get 1 free stone a day. There's also something that you can get from the attendance event. So there is this day 10 login box. It gives you those temporary stones that you can use for 30 days. And those, the most places you can get it. The last place I would recommend you try to check out if you can do the world boss. These +5 enhanced stones, very good to buy when you can, to buy them for what you need. Same, I would recommend more so the armor and the accessories when starting out. If you need the weapon, go for it, but in general you'll typically need more of the other ones because they have more collection logs, more than the moment. And you saw this interface earlier when I was buying a ticket, and this is another place you can get 10 a day from fishing. It's only 1 character, so you're going to want to just pick 1 character to fish with and then collect your stones. And the collection log is typically gated behind time or stones due to that. So you've gotten your stones, you know where to get them, you know what enhancing does, so how do you do it? So you put a piece of gear. In this case, I'm going to open up my collection log and show you why I'm enhancing this. So this level 50 blue piece of headgear is what I need in order to get my defense 25. That's the piece that I'm missing. So you can see in this collection log button right here, there's a red indicator, and that means that I can collect something for it. That means I have something in my inventory that is collectible for to be claimed or registered to the collection log. In this case, I already have the plus 550 boots. Now I'm looking to get this plus 5 headband. When you enhance all the way up to plus 5, guaranteed, all you need is the stones and a little bit of gold, and you're going to get it for sure. So what we're going to do is we're going to put it in there, and you can pick between these, which enhance one at a time, or the plus 5 stone. We're going to go ahead and select the plus 5 stone. You definitely want to click this enhancement motion quickened, and what that will do for you is that is going to make this go faster. So what you want to do is then click enhance, and as you can see, it went from plus 0 to plus 5. Normally it would go in increments of 1. If you were to be using the individual stones, for example, then I would suggest that you did something like this. You go to the continuous enhancement, and you can see all the armor enhancement probabilities. So for example, you can see that from 4 to 5, so all the way from 0 to 5 is guaranteed. If you go from 5 to 6, it's 50%. So that means it's half the time it's going to break. And when the item breaks, there's no takebacks, it's gone. If you go from 6 to 7, there's a 40%. So if you do a little bit of math, it goes about, to get a plus 7 item from 0, it's about a 1 in 5. If you're looking to get a plus 8 item, it's about 1 in 16. So as you can see, the higher you go, the much less likely you are to get that value or that number. So when you're looking at this collection log or these items, you want to make sure that you take that into consideration. So there's a little bit less, it's a little bit more likely to get that because items can enhance but not break. So they can still use a stone, but then you can get a chance to save the item. And we will go ahead and enhance this to 5 here because this is also what I need. And what we're going to end up doing is claiming these items to get stats. So to get, and you can do the values of the stones too, right? So you can say that this piece of plus 6 gear takes 12 stones to get. So you can kind of evaluate how much you want to invest and your time in order to acquire something. So something in the collection log takes a plus 6, you know that it's going to take 12 stones on average for each piece versus the plus 5, which is only going to take the guaranteed 5. So what you're trying to do with the collection log is collect the easiest stuff to get. And you can see that this plus 5 set of here is going to increase my defense. Generally you want to go after more offensive stats, but in this case we're going to go, this is collecting, this is my gear that I have. I don't want to actually claim this because I'm wearing it right now, but in the future I will move out of it and claim that. So what we're going to do is go ahead and look at our defense value. And this item collection log is all the way across your account. So we're going to see we have 7106 defense, and it should go up by 25. So we should expect to see 7127. I'm sorry, not 7127, 7131. By claiming this item gets deleted. You're going to see that it is deleted from the bottom right here. So it's no longer there. It's gone completely. It's been consumed. But it's now in my collection log. So now it says, okay, you've claimed this item. We're going to then claim the hat. And we're going to see this value has gone up, 7131, just like we'd expect. And that's across every character. It's permanent. So it's very useful for having multiple characters. It's very useful when you're trying to move through, when you're not really stuck in a piece of gear, right? It's not limiting you to have any one particular item. And something you'll notice too is simply how I kind of set this up, right? I had two pieces of gear that I had that I'm showing that, okay, well, these are the two pieces I have. As you collect them, you might have the stones to get it, or you might want to move it to alternate character banks in order to save it for later when you do have the stones. But a lot of collection log can be alleviated by organizing your inventory in a way that makes sense to you. You can see that I have it by the head piece, the chest piece, the leg piece, the hand piece, and the foot piece. Those are all in that row, and you can see that I have this set up in a scheme that I would know that, okay, these aren't the right pieces themselves, not the right levels, but for example, I would have a level 20 piece here, and I would have a level 20 piece here, etc. Or I would put fillers that are definitely not go in that because that's my scheme. So I know that these are all +6. I've set them up in a way that I know, and as I get them, I don't have to keep checking the log. You can write it on a piece of paper, you can make a notepad, you can just put them in your inventory. However is more convenient for you is what you're going to end up using. So I would like 60 extra critical. This is what I farmed already for the purposes of this video. I'm going to go ahead and I'm just going to claim all that, and you're going to see that again it goes away. So the item keeps getting claimed. And we're going to see that my critical is going to go up by 60. So we should have 5290 after we do this. And you can see the values of getting this 60 critical. It's 60, but we're going to go ahead and look at the collection log and we can sort. So we've claimed that. We see that again, that went up. That's going to be a guaranteed 60 forever. We're going to go ahead and claim this. Sometimes you don't want to claim it just because it's easier for you to reference. So maybe I hold on to this and get the other pieces. And as I collect it, it'll keep reminding me, it'll keep show up. For me, I'm okay with that right now. I need the inventory space. My inventory's a little cluttered. I need to clean it. But we're going to go ahead and just claim this as well. And we'll get that later. Again, these are the gear pieces I have equipped. I don't want to do that. You have the option to favorite an item. And what that means is that you can filter by how you want to have the items appear. So I have what I'm looking for in the future. And then additionally, you can also organize it by a type. For example, attack power, which would include all the legendaries, but there is a particular set. So I would like to go after aura. So I want more aura. I know there's a piece of gear that I have one of. I only need one more to get. And I want, okay, so I'm looking at my favorites. I'm looking at aura. And I'm looking at rare. So you can see that there's very few pages in here. I can see, oh, there's this aura that I can get. And it's at +5, it's only 2 pieces. That's something that you're going to think about. Say, okay, that takes 10 stones to get. And 10 stones to get 5 aura. You know, there are other pieces. If I take off only favorite and I do all, you're going to see that there are other ones. +10, remember we talked about getting +8 is 1 in 16. Maybe a little more likely due to the other factors. But you're not going to really reasonably get that. So you look at, okay, you know, +6, 50-50. Okay, so we're talking about 12, 24, 36 stones for 11 aura. Not bad. But you have to take into consideration how difficult the dungeon is or how easy it is for you to acquire the items themselves. +9 for this amount of aura, you know, not worth it. And as you go, you're going to see that these are level 1 items. As you go up in the level, you're going to notice that the amount of stats that they give go up. So if I go to the end, these are the higher level items. So these are level 60, etc. And this same set gives more. For whatever reason, the level 50 items give less than the other ones. I'm not positive as to why they chose to do that. Maybe it's a bug, but they haven't really adjusted it. So you can see in total, that's 10 stones for +5 aura. If we go to low, these are guaranteed. These are much easier to get because they're gray. You know, purple is more difficult to get. But you're going to see that, you know, this is 5, 10, 15, 20, 25. This is 25 stones for 5 aura. So that's less value for the stones that you have. But these items are much easier to get. And +5s are very good to start with because they're guaranteed. There's no RNG. 25 is going to be less than even 3 pieces at +6. That's less than that. And these white pieces are very easy to get. So make yourself some kind of list or some kind of reference that you know what to go for. Typically you want attack power, defensive penetration, aura, crit damage. Maybe you want some defense. But try to look at what is good for you, what is easy to collect, and what gives you the best results. If you have a lot of stones, maybe you go after more of the +5s. If you don't have as much stones, but you have more time, maybe you go after the higher valuable rare ones that have 2 pieces but are a little harder to get. So if you want to focus those harder to get pieces, what you can actually do is they have these materials, which they are able to get you these rare pieces in the equipment section. So for example, this level 50 item that I wanted, if I had 200 of these metals, what I could do was I could go ahead and get that glove that I needed. And it would be guaranteed, because at the end of every dungeon, in this section of the Gold Sunset Port, in this portal, they offer you these tokens. On normal, it gives you 1, advanced gives you 2, mastered gives you 3, hell gives you 4. So when you run a dungeon, you can consider that. And when you run this dungeon over here, the level 60, they only recently introduced these tokens. If you run normal, advanced, master, hell gives 2 to 3. So you'll know that 60 gives better stats for the amount of collection that you get, so they're more value for your stones. But the dungeons themselves are more difficult, time consuming, so you have to think of that too. If a dungeon is very long, even if the stats are better, maybe you're better off clearing a lower level dungeon. So these dungeons tend to be long, have higher stat requirements, and when you're starting out, they might not be the best to start with. Even though they give you high return on your stones, it might not be worth it to do that, because you might be struggling or taking several minutes to clear them, when instead you could be clearing a lower level dungeon. So if you want to target a particular piece, that is totally fine. One thing to note about that is they only offer it in the blue and higher, so blue, legendary, and the uniques. And that means that you cannot get these mid-tier items. So take that in consideration when you're choosing what to acquire. Again, +5s, +6, +7, those are all typically reasonable. +5s and 6s when you're starting out. And +7s eventually, you can get into those and they're not too bad. Anything above that, you're really looking at more end game, unless they choose to implement more of this item, which I'll mention here briefly. This is very poorly worded, And what it does is, if a piece of gear is between 5 and 9, it will prevent it from getting destroyed. So it's a guaranteed not getting destroyed. And typically you want to use that, for example, when you're leveling something from 8 to 9. And that's great, but you can get 1 of these per month. That's not a lot. So we're hopefully going to see more ways to get these implemented, but just know that they're out there, and maybe if you have a really good myth item that you want to try to enhance, it's valuable to you to use that, and go ahead and grab it and get it on cooldown. Watch out for ways to get it in the future. So we're going to go ahead and show you a quick trial run of this level 30 dungeon. And again, I don't have my gear on, and this is intentional. So when you're planning on what to get, you need to target certain things. For example, I want the lava necklace at +7, which is a blue piece. So I want that from here, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to try to kill these things in order to be able to do that. You pay attention to how fast I'm clearing the dungeon, because that's going to be relevant moving forward. And you have to this takes a certain amount of time to do. And you have to value your time. Evaluate, is it worth it for me to do this dungeon? Maybe I can come back and I can do this dungeon later, and the result is going to be greater because you have more stats, etc. You have better gear, you have better pet sets, you have better collection log. Just as you slowly choose to build your character, you'll come up with ways to more easily tackle these dungeons. You can see just how long it's taking me to clear this. If I had all my gear on, it would be almost instantaneous. I'd be going through these guys and one-shotting them, but instead I have to do rotations, think about what I'm doing, and that can be a factor too. If you have certain either time limitations or physical limitations, that it's more straining for you to play for longer, maybe you want to do some of the easier dungeons. For me personally, I chose to start when I was starting out, and things are a little bit different now as you have more ways to get stats earlier. But you can start at any point, anywhere. I chose to start in the level 40, 30, and 20 zones. So this dungeon is just a repeat. And you can see I got 4 of these level 30 medals that I can use to exchange. So this dungeon is just a repeat of one of the earlier dungeons that you encountered in the alley town. So what you can do is, if you don't mind foregoing, so if, for example, if you're looking for really easy to get pieces, like +5s or +6s at lower rarities, and you don't mind foregoing the tokens, or maybe it makes more sense to you to do it without them, you can say, okay, look at this is the Southwest Sewers, it's the same dungeon. And that's exactly what it is. It's the same dungeon, but it doesn't give, I don't believe it gives conquest experience. You have to take that into consideration. And it also does not give you the tokens at the end, but you're going to see that this dungeon is going to be much easier to complete. Remember, this is the same dungeon. I haven't changed my gear, but now I'm killing everything. And the rates are for the items don't change either. You can see I'm just using one move, and this is what it would be like if I had my gear on the higher tier dungeons. I'm going to have a similar approach, it's just a lot easier for me to go through it. You see just one skill completely kills everything. I'm going to complete this dungeon much more quickly. So when you're taking a look at your collection log, think about what works best for you. What does your character need? What stats are more optimal? You can see I got a similar distribution. I cleared it much more quickly, but I didn't get the tokens at the end. I'm not going to get conquest experience for it. So it's a trade-off. You have to consider what is more valuable to you as a player and what can you do with your time to most appropriately complete it. And that is what I have to consider too when you're choosing what to go after. And I repeat again, in general, what you want to do is you want to go after those +5s and +6s to start with. So for your accessories, again, typically attack power, defense penetration, aura, those are the 3 things you're going to primarily focus on. You can get some basic crit damage. They have some nice level 5 options for basic crit damage. Some +6s for the rarer ones. Defense penetration is tougher to get. I would suggest saving this till later, and that is because it takes +7. +7 is much more difficult to acquire. You're not as likely to get it again. Remember, 1 in 5. So maybe when you're starting out, you just want to get these values up. If you do get a legendary item, you don't have to enhance them. You can see there's no plus, so you just straight up get the items. Maybe if you need a little more MP at the start, right? You can start doing accessory dungeons and claim these MP ones. And just as you go through, you can kind of tick them off, favorite them as you need, what you're working on at that time. If you do it by attack power, it's kind of tough because there's all the legendaries that get in the way. But typically, you're going to want to go for the attack power from accessories, the aura from accessories. So I don't think there's a low aura option for the accessories. But for mid, you can see you start to get aura. And you want to start, again, higher. You don't, for +2, this is the same amount of stones. You would rather get 7 aura at the level 10 than 2 at the level 1. So don't start with the 1, start with the 10. Or maybe start with a higher one. This is the level 61. This only gives 11. Or, 11 for doing this. So that's more than 7, but it's going to be a lot harder to get. These don't really drop frequently. The drop rates for anything 50 and below are okay. So 40 and below are great. They're all fine. I would start there. But anything, so 50 is where it kind of gets, it's okay. 55 is pretty bad. And then the 60 is just completely terrible. You can get these item weapon chests from the dungeons that are weapon based, and they are bound to your character, and they drop on the hell difficulty. You can open them, and it's going to give you a weapon, again, that is bound. You can see I'll open 2, and it can be of different rarities. So if you need to get one of these for the collection, maybe you have multiple characters that are trying to utilize different weapons to claim for your collection log, that can be something to consider. Just know that they are bound and that you're going to have to utilize them. So that's how you enhance. That's kind of what you get from enhancing. That's, in general, try to organize your inventory so that it works for you. Organize your collection log. Know that there are other, not only equipment options, but you can get it from pet gems. A similar process. There's no enhancing here. The fishing also has it. And the events, you can get these. Typically the +5s and +6s are good. Don't go after the +8s, really. This is okay for me because I have a lot of weapon stones in excess. But generally, these +5s and +6s aren't too bad unless you're kind of just starting out. If you just started the event, maybe you want to kind of get some movement speed. Movement speed is pretty premium. That's why I get them. I really don't care about the rest of the stats. But, consider it yourself. Understand if you want to use the stones or not. Fishing, again, you can collection log these. You can collection log the pet gems. Primarily, you're going to be focusing on the weapon sets, understanding where you can get them, and running those dungeons. Again, if you're low on stones, maybe prioritize legendary items like these that give attack power. And if you want to use stones, focus on maybe more of the rarer items that give the other stats. So you want to focus on these +5 sets here that are giving attack power, or aura. Also, they are giving the aura for only 2 pieces, so they're a better bang for your buck, a better value. This is the anvil. It comes in every town. It's in different places. This is the evolution guy. He does not evolve gear at this time. In previous versions, he did evolve pieces of gear. Just know that he exists. Know that you can upgrade your talisman here. Armor doesn't currently do it, but he shows you what you would need to evolve a piece of gear. So that, in a nutshell, is what you need to know about your equipment, your collection log, enhancement stones. So if you have any questions, again, leave them in the comments. Join the Discord. I'll leave a link in the description of the video. Any questions about any other things like the stats or the soul gems or the talisman, whatever, I'll leave a link to the Intro to Kritika series that you can take a look at. Hopefully this helped you, and good luck on your collection log.